Hey everybody, here we are with all of us and a special guest named Daniel, who is all the way in Idaho right now. We are doing a special episode in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, which happens to be today. So we hope you enjoy listening a little bit more about Daniel and what he's got going on. He's also a fellow podcaster, so I think it'll be a great one. And we hope you guys enjoy this special episode. So, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. I am honored and excited to be here. So my name is Daniel Spalding. I am Nimipu. I'm Nez Perce from here in Idaho. I work for my tribe's radio station. I'm the radio coordinator, and as well, I produce my own program for the radio show or for the radio. And I am also a podcaster. I have a podcast with one of my old college buddies, the Brown Sound podcast. It's available on, Apple and Spotify. And so thanks for having me today. I'm definitely excited and honored to be here. I'm still in like that shock stage when people ask me to like speak on something or like invite me a thing. I'm like, oh, me? Sure. So I'm definitely excited and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, we appreciate your time as well. We're really excited to broaden our podcast to Idaho.
So where is it in Idaho? Where's your reservation in Idaho?
So the Nez Perce reservation is located in like the middle of Idaho. We're originally we were part of Washington and Oregon, but then our treaty, how that goes, was our reservation was shrunk. So we're I don't know how to call like the middle of Idaho, but like northern Idaho, because like there's northern Idaho, which is way different than the area that I live in, and there's southern Idaho that's like way more diverse and like I guess more. I don't know. There's just all Idaho is just a weird state. I'll just put it that way. It's full of crazy people. I always say Idaho is like Florida's first cousin. There's a lot of crazy things that happen out here. But yeah, so I'm located in the middle of Idaho. It's near Lewiston. Lewiston used to be the capital of Idaho, but now it's Boise. But yeah, so I'm from Lapwai. The reservation is makes up of I think three major towns. So there's Lapwai, where there's 90, I would say 98% of the tribal members live in. And then there's Kamiah, where the radio station is. And there's it's 50-50. There's some natives here, but mostly white, non-natives. And there's Orofino, which is in the middle. But yeah, so I'm from Lapwai, born and raised. Proud to be from Lapwai. It's always it's a little resi, there's definitely some crazy things that happen in my hometown, but I wouldn't rather, I'd rather be from there than anywhere else. So.
Oh, I love it. Do you guys have a casino?
Yeah. So we have two casinos on our res. We have one in Kamiah, and then we have a bigger one in or it's not in Lapwai, but it's 5-10 minutes from Lapwai. It's kind of more, near the border of the reservation. So we have a lot of different events there, concerts, MMA fights, comedy shows, things that happen at native casinos,
That's funny.
I always like to learn what's on different reservations.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we're not a per cap tribe, though. I wish we were, but we're not. We're rich in treaty rights, but not rich in per caps. But that's okay.
Yeah, we always get by.
Yeah.
Do you and your family have any traditions or anything that you guys do to celebrate our culture?
Yeah, so I grew up very half and half. So my mom's side of the family is very religious, Christian, and then my dad's side is more traditional, kind of believe in our longhouse and our Nimipu spirituality. So I grew up kind of in the middle of not knowing where I stand, because I definitely, obviously my mom would make us go to church every Sunday and do things like that. And so I grew up in the church, but then also when I became an adult, I kind of like, well, I don't know if I'm like super religious. Like I'm not, I'm just kind of floating by. So yeah, we go out. My dad is very big on our culture. He's very big on like teaching us and reminding us who we are and where we come from. In the summertime, a lot of times we go out like and pick huckleberries. I don't know if you guys have huckleberries over there or not, but
I don't think so.
huckleberries
Mm-mm.
huckleberries are like a small little purple berry. They're really sweet. They're really good. It's good on like ice cream, good on pies, good, people make huckleberries everything on in this side of the country. But yeah, so we like go out and pick like huckleberries or go and get like our traditional roots. We have one root called cows, and I don't know what the English word is for it because it's like just I don't know. It's a root. It's like near water, and usually you have to go and dig it, and it's a lot of hard work. Practice our treaty rights, fishing, hunting. I'm not much of a big hunter, more of a fisher. I like to fish and stuff like that, but when it comes to hunting and providing, I'm not the best native in that way. I'm like,
Same.
Yeah.
but I can fish though. I like to fish. I enjoy fishing. It's a lot of fun. So a lot of my memories growing up and a lot of family time is always something like fishing or camping or, digging roots or things like that. So.
Do you guys have wild rice lakes?
No.
Okay.
So I believe like the Coeur d'Alene people might have like wild rice or they have like something similar, but yeah, we don't have any wild rice over here or not in the area that I live in.
Do you guys eat wild rice? Is that a part of like?
Yeah, some people do. I mean, I have so like my family too is very like culturally diverse. Like I have so many different cousins who are also like other tribes and other ethnicities and things like that. So I know like a lot of my family who like come from Montana, they have wild rice in a lot of their food. But yeah, some people eat it here, and my coworker, he actually used to live over in Minnesota, and so he always has wild rice and all his meals all the time. And he always says it's really good with salmon because that's one of our staples is like salmon and rice and like corn, things like that. So
It is definitely a good meal. I actually just had that a couple of days ago.
yeah.
I did want to actually talk about your podcast. How did you guys kind of get started on it, and what do you primarily talk about?
So with Brown Sound, my friend Javier and I, we've been friends for like 11 years now. And we've always talked about starting a podcast like before I think like podcasts became so popular. We're like, we should start a podcast, but we just never did. But we started in January of this year and we just were like, let's just do it. Let's we keep talking about it. Let's just finally do it. So we tried to come up with a name and we couldn't figure out what we wanted to call it because he's Mexican American and I'm Nez Perce. So we're like, we come from two different cultural backgrounds, but we wanted to incorporate our culture in our podcast. So we're like coming up with stuff. And then I can't remember how we even came up with the name Brown Sound. I was like, oh, Brown Sound. Because we're brown, we're, and our little saying is like two brown best amigos, talking about anything and everything. But we try to, talk about our experiences, especially like as being brown men, talk about like toxic masculinity within our cultures and even within our family. And we talk about our experience trying to navigate through like a professional world, as being people of color, because sometimes there's a lot of, imposter syndrome and things like that. So yeah, we just try to talk about things that we feel need to be talked about, but we try to do it in a way with humor too, because humor, obviously, native culture humor is like, top tier. I feel like native humor there's nothing that tops native humor. So yeah, we definitely try to talk from like a point where just from our own experiences. And I try to say that in the podcast too. Like I can't speak for all natives. I just speaking from my own, like my personal experience and things like that. But yeah, so we started and it kind of just, I don't know, it kind of blew up here in Idaho. It's kind of weird. Like, I got kind of used to like being recognized a little bit with working for the radio station, but like with the podcast, it's like way more, I don't know, broad, I guess. So like we use Captivate FM to like host our podcast. And so when we look at all the like stats and stuff, we're like international, and I think we're like in over 64 different countries, and we're like in all of like Latin America pretty much, except like I think Cuba and Haiti. And yeah, there's like a few in Latin America that we're not downloaded in. So it's kind of weird, but cool at the same time. Cause I'm like, I didn't think people would listen, and
Right.
we're not doing it for like fame or nothing. We're just doing it to share our experience to help people like learn, because I feel like a lot of times, especially with Indigenous culture, we don't have those opportunities to speak about like our experiences, our perspective, and stuff like that. So it's been pretty fun. It's pretty cool. We get a lot of weird messages too. Like it's kind of funny, but yeah, no, that's pretty much Brown Sound. We try to have guests who also come from our communities and similar backgrounds and experiences too. We've had one of our friends is a therapist, and so he came on the podcast and talked about like mental health and like tips on like how to deal with that, especially from our background. Because I know for me personally, growing up, mental health, like we didn't talk about it. My dad is just like, tough it up. So
Yeah.
we talked about things like that, like it's okay to have emotions, it's okay to like be in your emotions and go through that, but just don't stay in it, things like that.
No, it's not.
I know. I'm like, it took me a lot to just even say that. Still, I'm still working with that. But yeah, no, I don't know. We just try to talk from our personal experiences and hope it sits with people, where they can learn something, or if they, a lot of times. And I think like a lot of our listeners, from the messages that we get, a lot of them are like non-native or non-Latino. So it's kind of cool that we reach like, I guess, like the white audience, because that's not who we, I guess, can relate with. But because sometimes some of the topics are they're a little tough, a lot of times they can be uncomfortable, but I think to grow and to heal from stuff, you have to talk about it. So that's
I
what we
agree.
do.
More,
Cool. I love
yeah,
it.
just
It's
talking about it brings more awareness to the subject and realizing, oh, other people feel this way. I'm not the only one. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. We always joke around like, one of these days someone's gonna pick us up and start paying us for it, so we don't have to work anymore.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to work every day. Can we just get paid for doing this? No, but yeah, it's been pretty cool. And it's also fun to like hear different stories just with my friend. I mean, I've known him for 11 years, but there's also stories where we shared on the podcast. It was like our first time talking about that. So it's like, oh wow, like I didn't even know that about you, or didn't know that about me. So it's been pretty cool. I think it's definitely made our friendship like stronger.
Cool. So is your primary job then the radio station?
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
the radio coordinator for the tribe station KIYE.
Did you go to school for that?
No, actually I didn't.
Cool.
Yeah, it just happened to fall in my lap. I didn't even know we had a tribal station. The lady who used to be the department manager, she was one of my mom's good friends, and she was like, hey, I think Daniel would be really good for this, position. He's kind of out. I mean, people who've known me my life, I've always been a very social person. I like to like talk and, meet new people. So she was like, I think he'd be good for this. And I'm like, I didn't even know we had a travel station because it wasn't popular. Like the people that worked here were older. And so they didn't really, I don't know, I guess the music didn't cater to like the younger generation. And so when she asked if I would apply, and I applied and I got it, and I just pretty much like, I don't know, it's weird. I try not to brag about it because it's like, we're humble people as Native people. You try to stay humble, but like the station, like it's never been where it's at, after I started. It's like, so it's like my little baby. I don't have kids, so I'm like, my job is my baby, I guess. But yeah, I put
Cool.
a lot of hard work into it. And I even got to like, even just starting out like with my job here, it was like I just started out with doing live music shows. So I would do like a live music show during my lunch break because I have other duties that go on behind the scenes here. So during my lunch break, I would go live and I'd play like current music to like throwbacks, just depends. And then after my 5th year here, because I've been here for 6 years now, and after my 5th year last year, I was like, I'm ready to um, grow. You know, I'm always big on like self-improvement and growth. So I was like, I'm ready for something more where people take me more serious, I guess. And so I started like a talk show format for the radio, and that also kind of blew up. Like I got to interview Deb Holland and Devery Jacobs with Reservation Dogs, and uh,
Wow.
Janice Schmeeding with Rutherford Falls. So it's been kind of cool to like dip into that part of the radio world. But yeah, so it's been quite the journey, and just excited to, I guess, see where it keeps taking me. I don't know.
Like, yeah, do you think this is where you'll be forever within the radio podcast world?
Yeah, but not like here. Like I definitely, got my experience and my start out here, but I am always, looking at other opportunities that could advance, my career. But for now, this is home. I mean, I love where I'm from. I think it took for me to like get away to like appreciate home. So I'm like, I don't mind it here, but I feel like I need to be like an urban Indian for a little bit, like I like the city, so I'm a lot of times, I mean, the closest city we have to us is like 4 hours away. So it's like, it's kind of a drive. So I live in a very country, like redneck, very proud American flags and Trump signs and everything, so it's kind of it's kind of awkward sometimes because there's like majority of people are non-native, and then there's like a handful of us here. And so I'm sure you guys can relate to like living like near a border town, how the businesses and the people can always be um a little rugged. So
So
Rugged and prejudice. Sorry, Morgan.
yeah.
is Indigenous Peoples Day like celebrated in your town then?
Yeah, so surprisingly, Idaho declared Indigenous Peoples Day a few years ago, but the first town, the whole state does recognize it, but the first town to do that was Moscow, Idaho, and Moscow is where the University of Idaho is. So it's like a very college town, very like liberal, open-minded, very diverse town in Idaho. And so Moscow acknowledged Indigenous People Day, I believe, in like 2019 or so, or 2018. So they did it a while ago, but then Idaho did it right before the pandemic. I think it was like 2019 or 2020 when they started acknowledging it. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah,
There's like 5 tribes that make up in Idaho, so it's it fits. But
do you have any plans for Indigenous Peoples Day?
yeah, actually, I'll be speaking at the University of Idaho. I am the keynote speaker, so I'll be speaking on like Indigenous representation in media and in my experience in radio and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool because U of I is like where like my start kind of happened. Like I used to be on their college radio station while I was going to school there. So it's kind of like a cool, I don't know, full circle moment for me.
Yeah.
I was definitely excited that they reached out and asked. Last year was my first time because I'm new to the speaking world. I'm very res, so like I have like the res lingo and stuff. So I tried to like I don't know. I try not to like change that because that's like who I am. But last year was my first year I got to speak at a college in Southern Idaho, College of Western Idaho. I was a keynote down there for their Native American Heritage Month. And so that was like the first of kind of getting on this speaker, I don't know, role. And so since then I've been getting little gigs here and there, and it's been kind of cool. So with the University of Idaho asking, I was definitely excited and honored just because it's like a really big school, and it's
Yeah.
like the top school in Idaho too. So it's like I was like, yes. So yeah, and then just being able to go to school there too. So I was excited.
Do you know how many people you'll be speaking in front of?
I'm not sure. I don't even know the size of like the venue or anything there. They got some new buildings and haven't been up there in a long time. So I'm excited though to see. They sent out the official press release today. And so it's like live on their website. They send it out to all the local media outlets. So hopefully that's a good turnout. But if not, it's still fine. I mean, big crowds still kind of scare me sometimes. So
I was gonna say, are you
Oh.
nervous?
yeah, definitely. I always feel nervous when I'm like trying to prepare, but once I get there, I don't know what it is. Something just kind of takes over and then I'm fine. I don't know. It's like I don't know. I think radio and podcasting is perfect for me because I don't have to be in front of anybody. But then when I get asked to do these things, I feel like I can't say no either. Like it's like gotta represent my community, gotta represent my family. And it's, it's just an opportunity where people get to learn about like my tribe in the area. Cause a lot of times people here don't even know that we're here and they don't even know that they're on the reservation or anything. So it's kind of
Yeah.
yes, it's kind of like an important thing for me to do, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's a good event.
Sure, you'll do great. You have a great personality and you're great at talking. So
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Do you know what you'll be talking about? Like, do you have a topic that you want to like focus on?
Yeah, so when I met with the Native Center, they wanted me to speak on just like my experience with being because we're like the only tribal station in Idaho too. So
Oh, okay.
very, very unique. Our tribal station is Nez Perce owned and operated. So me and my coworkers, we're all part of the tribe. So we really highlight a lot of the good things that happen in our communities because a lot of times the media, especially in our area, doesn't always portray natives in a good light. It's always something like, oh, there's a big drug bust on the res, or it's always this person was drinking and driving, or this person got stabbed or whatever, so they always put us in a way where it's like we're so dangerous, or we're these criminals. And so for me to be able to be at the radio station and control whole airwaves, I definitely use my platform to try to uplift our community and just share the good things that are happening. We're not just drug dealers and alcoholics and gang members or whatever. We have a lot of athletes that come out of Lapway, a lot of D1 athletes too. We have there's so much more to, I feel like our communities than just what the media portrays us to be. So they asked if I'd speak on like our representation in the media, especially in our area, things like that. So I'm definitely excited, but kind of nervous too, because it's still Idaho. Like Moscow's very open-minded, but it's still Idaho. So there's a lot of crazies up there too. So hopefully it's going to be, I don't have to run into no drama or anything, but we'll see. I have my family there, so I'm pretty sure I'll be good.
I kind of feel like that's an issue over here too, is Native Americans being portrayed very negatively in like news outlets and media.
Mhm.
And recently one of the local tribes in Minnesota just got a bunch of their land back from Wisconsin. And I didn't hear any coverage on it. I didn't read it in any newspaper. I didn't see it on Facebook, or actually heard
Mhm.
about it through one of my friends actually. And I feel like it's nice to, like, res dogs is becoming popular.
Mhm.
And I just seen the other day, Native American artists were on the red carpet, like their artwork and stuff. And I thought that was so cool. Like, it's nice to see us being, what's the word?
Recognized?
Recognized,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
But
'cause
we're
I think-
still portrayed in that bad light.
Yeah, and I think too that's like important because like growing up, I'm sure you guys can relate that we didn't see that. We didn't see ourselves in like mainstream media or in, on TV or anything. So that, to me, it's really cool to see as an adult, and then knowing that like the little res kids or indigenous kids, wherever they're at, get to grow up seeing themselves in something where it's not just Pocahontas or, something that's not always in a truthful way. So yeah, I've always been big on trying to like, I mean, I don't call myself an activist, but I've always been very like big on like equal rights and things like that, even before like social media kind of, I've always, I mean, I come from like one of my grandmas. She's like, she used to be like a really like big activist back in the day. Like she, marched with our tribe when the feds tried to come and take our fishing rights away. Like there's a picture of my grandma like being walked with FBI agents when they had their guns. And so my grandma, she's inspired me, like her strength and her activism for to stand up for like my tribe. That's something that she's always instilled in us too, to like stand up, you have a voice, use it. And so, and I'm sure you can relate, Native grandmas, they're very opinionated and very, they definitely have a voice. So yeah, so my grandma and her sister, they even went on, there was like a walk once from like somewhere in Oregon, and her and her sister went and like protest, and they like did some long walk from Oregon to, I can't remember what town it was, but yeah, so that's kind of a big thing around here, is just protesting and stuff. I feel like natives love a good protest. We've even had like the parts, I think it was like the megalodes, but I think it was going towards Canada. We've had protests even on our own reservation, like people were blocking the road so these things couldn't go because they're going towards like oil fields and stuff like that. So like, but they were going through the res and they were like ruining the surrounding, because our road is, I mean, I don't know, the area that I live in is also very kind of mountain-y-ish, so like the roads are kind of narrow. And so when they brought these big megaloads in, they were like scraping the trees and like knocking stuff over. So a lot of our people here even protested for that. Like they're ruining the land that's, obviously that we take care of and care about. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of weird to think like my little town, we're not very big, but we have definitely like a huge, I don't know, huge spirit, I guess, to protest and act, be activists and things like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love the story about your grandma. Very cool.
So do you incorporate some of that into your podcast as well?
Yeah, sometimes we do. I know a lot of the times, because my friend, he works in higher education, so sometimes we have to be a little bit careful with what we say, just because some of his like coworkers and stuff found out that he has a podcast, and so they listen.
Oh,
and so yeah, so like a lot of his coworkers, are kind of big wig, like in higher ed and stuff, or mine, I'm like, man, my coworkers, they agree with me, they're cool. But so I know sometimes we have to kind of be a little bit careful, but I definitely don't like filter myself or what I believe in just to kind of cater to that though. But I mean, I'm not on there being crazy and, like being super disrespectful or anything. I always try to, still be respectful, but in a way, just letting people know, like a lot of times, I mean, even some of the feedback we got, some of them were like my old high school teachers, and they didn't even know, like, they didn't understand the things that we went through. Like, like a lot of times here, especially in our area, I mean, I know missing and murdered Indigenous women, that's a huge thing in a lot of our communities, but in mine, men end up, there's a lot of police brutality in our communities with just the men, the tribal men. And we've had a lot of police kill a lot of tribal members here. So I kind of touch a little bit on that sometimes, but not to be like anti-cops or anything, or, I'm trying to like, I mean, I get it. They're working hard and stuff like that, but there's a lot of, I understand that there's good cops and bad cops, but from my experience growing up where I live, we had a lot of like Nez Perce men who were killed by cops. And so those subjects always get a little touchy because some of the teachers that I've had didn't realize that. And, they don't understand that like our biggest weapon here is the color of our skin, you know? So yeah, we try to talk about things like just, I don't know, I guess we just try to bring awareness to topics that like, I guess non-natives wouldn't really understand, or non-Latino or non, you know, I mean, I'm like, can I say white people? I don't know. Like, I never know to say like, I mean, I don't know. I saw this thing on Twitter where like, you know, white people were getting offended being called white, but I'm like, I mean, well, what do you want us to call you? I don't know. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. Like European Americans, I don't know. But
Sometimes I just like saying, you know, you've been calling us Indians for,
yeah,
for hundreds of years.
Seriously.
I'm like
was-
the people who, you know, start calling us all these things. They don't want to be called what they are now. So I don't know. Most times I'll just say soyapo because that means like white person in my language. I was like, oh yeah, soyapo or something, because they usually don't know what that means. But
Well, very cool. Besides your event coming up on Indigenous Peoples Days, do you have anything else coming up that you want to talk about, or?
that's kind of, I think that's pretty much it. You know, I have that coming up, and I haven't heard anything. I know the college last year that I spoke at for the Native American Heritage Month, they were wanting to do another event in partnership, but that's not till November, and I haven't heard anything if they're moving forward with that or not. But yeah, I just have the thing on Monday. Other than that, you know, I try to not be a busy person. Like, I really don't like to be busy. Like, I'm a go with the flow. Like, I don't, you know, I mean, I'll schedule things out for work and stuff, but I'm just a very, you know, and when I'm busy, it like stresses me out, and I try not to stress out over things that, you know, like, but
Right.
yeah, so that's pretty much it that I have planned for now. I'm just excited that the weather's kind of changing. We had like super hot summer. We had like 3 months of high 100-degree weather. Like, I was like, okay, and I normally like the summer. I was born in June, so I'm like a summer baby, but I was like, dang, this summer was too much. You know, I'm ready for fall. I'm ready for, well, not winter, but I'm ready for fall. I'm definitely ready for
Me too.
just the season change and things like that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens coming up. I'm always open to, you know, sharing my experience and stuff, but I feel like I'm not one of those people who goes out and looks for it, you know, like I'm not trying to be like a speaker at every event, because I, you know, I get nervous too. So I'm like,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, again, we appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about yourself and what you got going on in your podcast. We'll drop next week sometime, and we'd love to share that on our page as well. So everybody
Yeah.
check it out and hear
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So if anyone is ever interested in hearing any of like the interviews from my radio show, you can just go to our radio website. It's just kiye.org. There's a tab called The Conversation. That's what I call my program. And then all my interviews are on there. If they want to listen to Brown Sound, that's all. We're available Apple and Spotify. Brown Sound and like The Conversation with work, it's like two completely different Daniels too. So it's kind of cool. Like with work, I have to be obviously more professional and more I guess mutual. Like I can't side onto one thing or other. Where Brown Sound, you get to hear a lot more about my personal life, my upbringing, a lot of my shady jokes. You know, we always do like a shady question segment at the end of our podcast. So we always ask like 3 shady questions, because I mean, just a little fun, you know, just to poke a little fun, make people laugh. So Brown Sound's definitely, I feel like Brown Sound is like, I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this, but it's more my favorite, I think, than like the radio stuff, because I could be more myself on the podcast, and it's more, you know, opening up and being more vulnerable. And that's something that I'm usually not a very vulnerable person. Always have a guard up. You know, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know. But with the podcast, it's also helping me too. So I enjoy it a lot.
Well, awesome.
Awesome.
Well, again, we thank you so much, Daniel. Do you guys have any other questions?
Do you guys have any social media like Facebook or TikTok or Instagram?
Yeah, we are always dancing on TikTok. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
No, I'm
Oh,
just
I was
kidding.
like,
No,
I'm gonna go search for it
no.
right now.
No, we don't. I don't dance on TikTok, but no, we do have an Instagram page. So if people want to follow the Brown Sound Podcast, we're just on Instagram at the Brown Sound Podcast. We usually share a lot of our episodes and our special guests and different little shout outs, and we try to also bring like awareness to topics in our communities and share a lot of community events on our Instagram page. So yeah, if you just want to look up Brown Sound Podcast, you can find us on Instagram. And yeah.
Sweet.
Very
Cool.
cool.
All right,
Well, again,
everybody.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming down. Do you have any questions for us? At all, or-
Yeah, I guess my question is what inspired you guys to start your podcast?
So a friend of mine who owns a construction company was having trouble finding Native employees because he's Native and owned and operated, and he wants to hire Native Americans and help change their lives, and because poverty is a huge thing here.
Mm.
And he was just having trouble with the outreach, and he was like, how do I get more people aware to know that, you can make $30-40 an hour being in like the construction industry, trade work. And I kind of just like threw out the idea. I was like, well, what about a podcast or something? Because everybody listens to podcasts nowadays. And from there, he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. So we kind of set it up, and me and Alyssa are together. So she kind of wanted to help out with us. And Morgan's a really good friend of the family. So we all just kind of grouped up and formed a podcast.
Nice. I think
Yeah.
it's really, really cool and important too, especially, uplifting and amplifying Indigenous voices and providing opportunities for our people. I think that's one of the biggest things that I think a lot of our communities can relate with. We kind of don't do it for ourselves, but we always do it for our community. So I think that's pretty cool what you guys are doing. And, kudos to you all.
Well, thank
Oh,
you.
Thank you. I do have one last question. What do you love most about being Indigenous?
That's a good question. I'm like everything. I don't know. I mean, I think, the one thing I love the most is just family oriented. I'm very big. I come from a big family on both mom and dad's side. I grew up kind of got the old school parents, like the aunties and the moms and the grandmas. They, do everything. They're like the backbone that really keeps my family going. And I come from a lot of strong Native women, so I always got to give my shout out and my appreciation to the Native women in my life who made me who I am today. I mean, obviously my dad's, I've had an awesome dad too, but like my mom and my aunts and my sisters and all of them, they're just they're the strength, to my family. So I think the one thing I love the most about being Indigenous is just family and the culture. I mean, I feel like the humor, the food, everything. I mean, I think that, my culture inspires me to do what I do in radio and in, the podcast world. And it's a huge part of just who I am. So I would just have to say, yeah, everything, I guess.
I love it. I'm gonna answer. Maybe we should all
Yeah,
share
that's a good question.
just so everyone gets a good perspective. Family is also an important part, but after you said that, I think mine would be like how our culture, for some reason, the Native culture, when like people want to like get together, like they just know how to come together and like celebrate no matter what, put differences aside, like something about the Native culture that we can just come together when we need to and like celebrate or support someone. Or I just feel like my reservation on Fond du Lac, I feel like in our area we've had a very like tragic couple years here with incidents and deaths or whatever. But like, it's just crazy to watch the whole community just come together and make a difference. I think that's very cool. And I don't see that in other, communities.
Right.
I would say one thing I love most about being Indigenous is, I mean, also the family. I have a huge family and we're all connected, even though like sometimes we won't talk to each other for a couple weeks or something, but like when we do talk, it's like we never missed a day.
Mhm.
I also like the feeling of just being rooted. Like, I don't know, I always feel connected. Like for me, I consider my home to be South Dakota because I'm Lakota. And I don't, every time I go there, it just feels like I'm home.
I would have to say definitely like family, the food, the culture, but like
Oh, the food.
Food, yeah.
but like being resilient. I think we have a lot of resilience and our pride of being Indigenous people, and because we've been through so much, but yet we're still here and we want to be heard. And
Mhm.
Can I change my answer to that?
no,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
my
like,
answer.
dang. I'm all, yeah, I take that back and everything you said. Same.
Well, awesome.
right.
I think it was a great episode for Indigenous Peoples Day, ending it with what we love about being Indigenous. So kudos to us.
Yes, Katsiayo for having me. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, shout out to you all and keep doing the good work. I think it's very important that we our community supports one another. That's another thing. I think there's a lot of times our community sometimes can have, the crabs in the bucket mindset, but I think it's best that, uplifting each other and uniting and standing with one another is a lot better than tearing others down. So kudos
Yeah.
to you all and keep up the great work.
Thanks.
You too.
Too.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you on our next episode. Until then, this is Middle of the Res Road. Bye.
See
Bye.
ya.